We have more this morning from that explosive 60 Minutes interview with Bernie Madoff's wife. Yesterday, we heard Ruth Madoff say that she and her husband tried to kill themselves after his multi-billion-dollar fraud was revealed. And in the interview with Morsley Safer, she also talks about the day Madoff confessed to her.
I was kind of paralyzed. Bernie got up and said, "I'm going back to the office."
Was he emotional in any way?
I don't remember that either. He must have been.
Apologetic in any way?
Probably, yes. It's sort of a blank now. I'm not hedging here. I just simply don't remember every detail. I was in such a state.
And later that day, that evening, you both turned up at the office Christmas party.
I know. He phoned me from the office and said, "We have to go to the office Christmas party." So I got myself together and went over there. We stayed a half an hour, and we just went home. And the next morning, the FBI was there to arrest him at about 7 a.m.
And joining us now is Bernie Madoff's former attorney, Lee Sorkin. Mr. Sorkin, good morning. Thank you for joining us here this morning. So we've heard some of these new revelations here with these interviews for 60 Minutes. Were you at all surprised with anything that you've heard, or have you been privy to all this information?
I was aware of all the information that she disclosed.
And as far as the arrest and how it went down, your recollections of how it all?
It's very clear to me. I was out of town watching my 2.5-year-old granddaughter in a nursery school class at about 9:30 in the morning in Washington, D.C., when my cell phone rang, and he was on the line, and he essentially said, "I've been arrested. I'm handcuffed to a chair at the FBI headquarters. I need your help." And he had spoken to me about a week and a half earlier to come up and talk to me about what I didn't know. And then he'd called me the day I was headed to Washington, the Wednesday the 10th, when all of this went down for the family, and said he needed to adjourn it until Monday the 15th. I said, "Fine, come up and see me the 15th. And then when I was down in D.C. on the morning of the 11th, I got the call around 9:30 in the morning.
Bernie takes a plea deal a couple months later after the arrest. What motivated him to do that so quickly?
His wife and his family. There's a good possibility that he could have stayed out for a much longer period of time under bail conditions. And then pleaded, because I think at the time that he confessed to his sons, he knew that he was going to die in prison. So there's the possibility that he could have stayed out. However, the pressure on his wife, the pressure on his family was so intense. The anti-Semitic threats that were vicious, the death threats, that to relieve the pressure on his family, and particularly his wife, he chose to plead. And the moment he pleaded and was remanded to prison, the satellite dishes disappeared, the helicopters disappeared, the reporters disappeared.
Did they encourage him to do that, or was that his decision?
That was his decision.
As far as the suicide that we heard from Ruth, I know there are some people that think there may be some truth to it. Maybe it's not 100% true. Did you know that Bernie, or think that Bernie was suicidal at the time?
I was aware that he was in a pretty bad state. I'm not qualified to say when one is suicidal or not, but I knew he was in terrible, terrible shape.
So it did not surprise you when these revelations were made public?
No. Well, I knew about it. I knew about the attempt before.
Let me ask you this. We talk about Bernie being concerned for his family, taking the plea deal quickly, like Rebecca mentioned, concern for Ruth and the kids. Did he ever demonstrate or display any sympathy for the thousands of people whose lives he ruined? Oh,
yes. Not that he would ever be believed, but he certainly did. He certainly did in conversations with me, which I'm not going to go into. He had enormous remorse. He felt that he could get out of it. He never could get out of it. It continued to spiral, and you know the rest.
Lee Sorkin, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.